Welcome to the tutorial for how to make an overlay for a TTRPG game. There's going to be 3 videos in this. The first one, I'm going to show you how to get all of your camera capture areas lined up the way that you would like them to be lined up. I would highly recommend going over this step so you can see how to get everything lined up properly. Step 2 will be how to actually create the overlay itself. And step 3 will be showing you how to get it set up in OBS so you can use it for streaming to your favorite streaming service, be that Twitch, Facebook, YouTube, or wherever. So the first thing we need to do is create a new file. And I am using GIMP for this. I use it because it's free, it's open source. But if you happen to be using Photoshop, the steps are going to be basically the same. So we're going to start by creating a new file. The image size is going to be 1920 by 1080. That's the standard aspect ratio. Most monitors are this size now. I like to make it this size so that way if you have to scale it down it will look good, whereas if you make it smaller and you have to scale it out bigger it won't look as good. The other thing I need to do here is change my resolution. I do not want 300 pixels per inch. It's entirely too big. That is print quality. And you will not be able to notice the difference between print quality and a screen resolution on a monitor. So I'm going to drive this back down to 72, which generally is the highest you really need to go. It also makes the file much, much smaller. And now we have a file. Now, I don't need this green background. We're going to come back and use this, though. I'm actually going to rename this. No, hang on a second. We're just going to redo this. Fuck it. So we need to create a new file. And here's a few things. The width, 1920 Brian, by 1080. We're going to change the resolution to 72 pixels per inch. We don't need to go 300. 300 is print quality. We do not need to be at print quality. You will not notice the difference on a computer screen. The other thing I want to make sure is that I'm opening this up with a transparent background. And there we go. Now, the first thing we're going to do is create where our first... Now, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create our first place, our first area where we will be capturing video. Now, in the case of my game, we have 5 people, the 4 players plus the Dungeon Master, so we have 5 camera captures total. If you have fewer captures, you would want to do this in a slightly different way, but ultimately you want everything to be lined up properly so that way it looks good on the screen. The way that I like to do this is I'm going to create a new layer, and I'm going to call this layer Camera 1. All right, and it's just a layer of the same size because most cameras are going to capture at this same resolution. And I am going to paint this entire layer this bright green color. The reason why I'm using this color is because this color does not occur in nature. This is why they use this color for when they do green screening in cinema and in television production, because it's easy to edit this part out against other colors. Now, I need to resize this, because obviously I'm not going to fill the entire screen. So I'm going to go to my resize tool, and I am going to shrink this down to about the size I think it should be, and I think it's got to be about that big. I think that's what I need. And I'm going to move this to the position where I would like it. Now, like I said, we have a 5-person game. This is where, for our game, for Team X, where the Dungeon Master is going to live in Season 3. That's me. So I'm going to put it up here, and then I want it aligned in the center. It's going to be very important for this next step. And I'm going to select my Align tool, and I'm going to align this in the center. Right. Now, for my other players, I need them aligned in the center with these sections on either side of me. So I'm going to create a new layer here. I'm going to call this layer Guidelines. And I'm going to draw some lines on here. I'm going to use a pixel brush. I'm using about 3 pixels, and I need to draw a line from here to here. Now in Photoshop, this is, if you hit Shift, it'll make it a perfectly straight line. Oh, here we go. Control, Shift, boom, I have a straight line. Okay? Now I need to find the center of this. The way I'm going to find the center of this is I'm going to go from corner to corner. here, and I'm going to go corner to corner here. It's very important that we do this in the guidelines layer and not on the camera layer. Now, given that I now have a center point, I can get my indicator as close to the center as that intersection as possible. I'm going to click here, and then what am I going to do? I am going to, boom, draw a line straight up. And then I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to grab it again right here in the center. I'm going to come straight down. Boom. I now have the center of this section of the screen. All right. So now I can set up my other camera. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to duplicate this layer. And I'm going to move, oh, not that. I'm going to go now move this guy. And you see when I move it, I get a little center bracket right there. And I'm going to make sure that center bracket is as close to center on that line as possible. It's about as close as I'm going to be able to get. That's fine. Okay. And now I'm going to make another copy of that. Duplicate layer. And I'm going to bring it down. Same deal. I want to bring it right here. Now I want to make sure I give myself enough space here when I'm spacing this out. So I have room to put the player and character names. I've got room to put stats around if I want. And I want to leave room at the bottom in case we have any stream announcements we want to use that space for. So I have this. Now I want to make sure that this is aligned vertically now. It's horizontally aligned. I want to make sure it's vertically aligned, center. So I am now going to merge these two down into one layer. So I've got camera 1 and camera 2 right here. I'm going to come back to my align tool. I'm going to select this, and now I'm going to align it going this direction. There we go. See, now here's the cool thing. I'm going to take my guidelines. I'm going to move the guidelines over here and line it up the same way. See how that works? And now I'm going to duplicate these layers, or this layer right here, and I'm going to move that center as close as I can to the actual center right there. It doesn't matter how high it goes. I just need it right in the middle. And now I'm going to turn my guidelines off. I'm going to come back to my align tool. I am going to now do that, and boom. We now have our cameras aligned perfectly. Now you might want a different configuration. You might want your GM screen to be dead set in the middle. You might want to do like we have Team X, where we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we've got the DM sitting over here. However you want to do this, that's fine. That's how I like to do this, so that way everything is neat and uniform for as we move forward. So that is the first part. Part 2, the next video, is going to show you how to actually create the overlay itself.